everyone, welcome back to Earl Grey Books. I'm Ellie and today we are doing the end of the decade book tag. So this tag was created by Kat from Brews and Reviews, and I was tagged by another Kat from Stars and Embers. So the way that this tag works, I've got my laptop here, is that we're splitting the decade into 3 sections. So we're going to move slightly this way so that I can put them here. So we have 2010 to 2013, 2014 to 2016, and 2017 to 2019. So in Cat number 2, in her video, she split them up a little bit differently. I've decided to go with the original Cats ones because I'm lazy and yes. So there are 5 questions for each period. So let's go through them. Question number 1 is, how much did you read? So I'll go through each of the 5 questions for the decade and then so on. So 2010 and 2011, I'd say maybe about 1 or 2 books a month. It just wasn't really reading too much. This was just sort of, I got Goodreads in 2011, so reading started to pick up then. But there just wasn't really anywhere in my life that I could find out about new books. It was just me and my mum going to like Big W or to the library, and that was pretty much the way that I found new books. Yes, but obviously I don't have a record of these. So things started to pick up in 2012. And then in 2013, I read 130 books, which I'm pretty proud of. I think that's a good number. Number 2 is, what genre did you read the most? And at the time, I was reading a lot of popular YA for that time. So things like The Hunger Games, Shatter Me series, which was a trilogy at the time, John Green, people like that. And yeah. Also, like Cat 2, I read a lot of things about vampires at the time. So, yeah. Number 3 is, what were your favourite books and authors? So in 2012 is when I discovered Agatha Christie for the first time, and just instantly fell in love with her. The first book of hers that I read was And Then There Were None, which remains one of my favorites because it was the first one, and also because it's such a cool premise. Like, it's 10 people get invited to an island and then slowly get killed off. Like, you know, that's pretty cool. I also discovered Ian McEwan, who I really liked. I'm not sure on that anymore, whether that's a past thing. And also Cassandra Clare. I feel like that's really a series that really got me into YA and back into reading. I used to read a lot as a kid, and then I got to high school and I just had a bit of a shitty time with things. And yeah, I got diabetes in this period, so I was just not having a good time. And I struggled a bit in the first few years of high school. So, which sort of leads into question 4, which is there a book you wish you'd read during this time period? And honestly, so I graduated in 2013, so I just feel like the books that I read were like really good for those like middle school to end of high school period, because yeah, I say I had a hard time at the start of high school, but that was like, it continued on basically. So I feel like the books that I read were pretty light, and I'm glad I wasn't reading the sort of heavy things that I do today, because yes, that was the time. That was the time that I went through. And question 5 is, do you have any regrets about your reading during this time period? And I'm just gonna throw it out there for all 3 of these periods. The answer is no, because I think that everything that I read, even if I don't enjoy it, at least I know, and I would rather do that than just be like, you know, not know how I feel about a book or not give something a try. So yes, that's 2010 to 2013. Now we move on to 2014 to 2016. Okay, so again, question 1 is, how much did you read? Obviously I was using Goodreads by this point, and even to this day, I'm pretty like, I add every single book that I read. So 2014, I read 154. In 2015, I read 196. And in 2016, I read 200. 2, what genre did you read the most? Mostly fantasy. And again, still a lot of that like popular YA. So I read Sarah J. Maas. I was still reading Cassandra Clare. Those sorts of books. I'm looking over to my bookshelves as if I'm going to be like, yes, I read that in that year. I can't remember. Number 3, what were your favourite books and authors? I discovered Sylvia Plath in these years. I think it was 2014, and also I read Jane Eyre for the first time around the same time. And then also I discovered poetry, which has been a huge thing for me that I've fallen in love with. Really, Perse? Number 4, is there a book you wish you'd read during this period? Again, no, not really. I say that high school was tough. 2014 to 2016 was tough in a whole new way. I was going through a lot of grief in 2014 and also, well, the whole period. And it was, as much as high school sucked, I think that 2014 to 2016 was probably the toughest time of my life so far. So the only thing that I wish I'd probably done was probably read more children's books that were a little bit more light-hearted, that I needed a little something to sort of, you know, something light, something happy. I probably needed that more than what I ended up reading, which just made me feel more depressed. So yeah, that's 2014 to 2016. Not a great time. There we are. 2017 to 2019, this is when things are finally looking up for Ellie. So question 1 is, how much did you read? So 2017, I read 140. 2018, 124, and so far in 2019, I'm up to 149. You may have noticed that my totals have dropped down. 2017 was when I started working, and I pretty much worked full-time up until August of this year. I wasn't supposed to be. I was just working as a casual, but they also don't tell you about working in a bookshop is that you rarely get the time to read, which is a little bit ironic. But yes, as we can see, my reading is picking up again, which is great. Number 2, genres. I think poetry is obviously a huge one for these years. Also non-fiction, because I started really getting into non-fiction towards the end of last year, and it's something that I really enjoyed exploring this year, which leads me into question 3, which is favorite books and authors. So yeah, I fell in love with non-fiction. Some favorites being Eggshell Skull, The Arsonist. Yeah. I also really fell in love with books about art, especially again in the last year. And yeah, I'll talk a little bit more about that hopefully soon. And of course, I discovered Margaret Atwood, who I think has changed my life. So yeah, and I mean, I guess my struggle with these questions is there's so many favorite books that I just can't name them, and there are so many different authors that I read and loved. But yeah, I am thinking of doing a kind of like updated favorite author kind of video. I don't think I've done one on this channel. I think I may have written it as a blog post, but if you would be interested in that, please let me know, because even in the last month or so, I've realized that a couple of authors I was considering my favorite aren't really my favorite anymore. So yes. And of course, question 4, is there any book you wish you'd read during this time period? Again, no. I just wish that I'd read a little bit more, and maybe made the time for it a little bit more than I did in these years. But hopefully I will get better at that. And then finally, there are 2 extra questions just about in general. So question 1 is, when did you find BookTube and did it change your reading habits? I think I found BookTube in about 2011 towards the end, where that's also how I discovered Goodreads. Someone mentioned it in a video. I think the first people that I watched are like Sana from Books and Quills, and yeah, she's the one that stands out, but also people like Ariel Bassett and that sort of group. Did it change my reading habits? Yes, because I suddenly had somewhere that recommended all these new books to me that I'd never heard about, and I found a lot of great books from BookTube in the beginning, and I continue to now, but I feel like I also now have different outlets where I found books, and in 2011 and 2012 that was like my only source of book recommendations. So yeah, it definitely did. And number 2 is, how do you think your reading has changed over the last decade? Massively, like massively. I still enjoy a good YA book, but I don't really read them as frequently as I used to. I often stay away from the popular ones unless it's something I'm really into. And I feel like I've also gotten better at knowing whether I'm going to like a book or not. There are still obviously surprises, but I feel like I kind of know my tropes and things. I definitely read more widely than I used to. And I think as well, back in like 2011 and 2012, it wasn't a big thing. But obviously in the last few years, the whole reading diverse books has really blown up. And I think, yeah, 2011, 2012, there just wasn't a lot of that. Like, it was just starting. And now it's something that I really try and take notice of. And yeah, I think that pretty much answers all the questions. Thank you all so much for watching. And I know this was a bit of a longer one than what I usually do. So thank you for sticking with me if you have, and I will see you all tomorrow. I've got my laptop here so I can tell you what my plan is. Let me find the right document. Here we are. Oh, it's Friday tomorrow. I'm filming this ahead of time. So Friday tomorrow, weekend reads. I will see you all then. Thanks for watching and have a great night, day, morning, afternoon, whenever you're watching this. And thanks again to Kat and Kat for creating the tag and tagging me in it. And yeah, bye.